Efficiency has certainly gone up, the ability to produce things, but some people have argued that it just has
slowed us down in other areas.
Well, it's just allowed us to more efficiently produce crap. Come at you a little different from an education standpoint.
How dare you come at me from an educated point of view?
I didn't say from an educated point of view. You don't have the teenagers.
Yeah, I might
I want to see if you have become irrelevant, because I feel like there's a dip in your relevance as a human being to teenagers.
I'm right there. I'm in it.
And that dip is like, you got parent life going, toddlers, they're not bringing it home yet.
Yeah,
so, I mean, you got the nieces and nephews.
Now, the only shot that I have too is working with the youth over at church.
Yeah, so you'll have heard
I'll
some.
hear some of it, but like a lot of times it just goes completely over my head. I'm like, what the heck did you just say to me? And it's like, there are terms that I'm like, that can't be good. Like that just can't be good. I've been called things and I'm like,
what is that?
I don't feel like that was a compliment.
I called somebody a Gen Z. Like, now, this is one of Julie's friends, and I said something about all these Gen Z terms. She looks at me, she goes, I'm Gen Alpha. And I'm like, the fact that you know what generation you're in is hilarious to me.
Mm-hmm. So what are some of these terms that are being thrown out there now?
Okay, I'll start out. Easy one, rizz. You have totally heard this one.
Oh, yeah.
I know. Like,
rizz.
I think we've been throwing the rizz thing around.
I'm good. Yeah, I got that one.
Okay.
I got that one down.
Okay, so what about skibidi?
I have heard of skibidi, but I'm still kind of confused as to what skibidi is.
Skibidi.
Are we helping people connect with their children today?
Okay,
like, is that anybody that's listening that has kids? In that
I'm just telling you
realm.
What I hear coming out of the kids' rooms all
so
summer.
What is a skibidi?
Skibidi. There was a YouTube video.
Okay.
And skibidi toilet is the whole deal. So,
skibidi toilet.
Skibidi toilet. I know it's a YouTube thing. Context tells me, like, if you're skibidi, not good. You don't want to be skibidi.
So am I a toilet if I'm skibidi?
Skibidi toilet.
Do I stink? Is that kind of the...
I guess you got to look it up. Man, I hadn't seen the actual YouTube.
Skibidi.
And I might be completely off. I genuinely maybe.
Skibidi toilet. Okay.
Skibidi toilet.
Let's do some research here, guys. Skibidi. How the heck do I even spell it?
We're making you better as parents.
Skibidi. Skibidi?
Skibidi.
Skibidi.
Okay. And everything's skibidi because it's like all of a sudden things are just like you're using this term in ways that it wasn't originally used. So skibidi is like you're hurling that at somebody. You don't want to be skibidi. That's what I know. Like, I don't think you want to be skibidi.
Okay. All right.
You want to have rizz, but you don't want to be skibidi.
Should I go to Urban Dictionary? No. Okay. I'm going to go to today.com because I feel like they're going to give us the Gen X explanation more thoroughly and not the AI
Please
explanation.
Explain to a boomer.
Yeah, you notice in Google now they're giving you like the AI answers and stuff, and sometimes those are wrong, which is a lot of fun. So yeah, catch up on teen slang. Skibidi is a silly word that means literally nothing. This is from today.com. I love that they're citing Urban Dictionary within this. So according to Urban Dictionary, the teen slang is a word usually used to start a convo, specifically a convo filled with brain rot. Brain rot. So cool.
Yeah.
As the site separately explains, brain rot, I love how they have to explain
brain rot
the explanation.
Seems very self-explanatory to me.
Slang to represent a person's brain turning to mush or rot when obsessing over something. So using skibidi in a sentence might flag the start of a really ridiculous conversation. So, Eddie, skibidi.
Skibidi.
Today.
Okay, Ohio is another one. Have you heard the introduction of Ohio?
I know Ohio.
Skibidi toilet, Ohio rizz. Like I throw this stuff out at my kids I have no idea what I'm saying, but I throw this stuff out at them just to watch them roll their eyes as I walk by.
Okay, Ohio slang?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. This
is another new thing.
Okay.
And again,
all right,
like I'm just working off of context.
All right, guys, we're going to Reddit here. What does Ohio mean as an adjective?
I don't know if you'll even find this is very.
I've been learning English for 4 months, and I'm trying to find the difference between Ohio as a state and as an adjective. Okay. All right. What are these Gen Z slang words? That's the funny thing, guys, is that like they're being pinned on Gen Z. This is not Gen Z stuff. This is like the next gen.
This is the next gen. Okay.
That's the funny part.
What
to
about
me.
Sigma?
Sigma.
What the Sigma is, this comes up. What the Sigma? This comes up all the time at the house.
Yeah. Ooh. Okay, wait.
Did you find
I think I found a lot of really, really good explanations here.
Dictionary of Gen Alpha
Actually,
terms.
no, Ohio is not in there. Did we ever determine what Ohio is?
I don't know. It's just not great. I get the impression it's not good.
All right, I'm going to give you the AI overview here. Ohio used to describe something or someone that's weird, bad, or cringe.
It's cringe.
Eddie, you're Ohio.
Cringe. You know what's hilarious? Cringe would have been a millennial term. Like that was slang. So now they're using cringe as mainstream language. Your language now, Tyler, is no longer cool.
Yeah. So as a joke, people started saying only in Ohio or X in Ohio, usually accompanied with videos or pictures of weird things going on. Along with this, Ohio could be used as a synonym for weird or creepy. So yeah, it's just not a good thing to be called.
Not a good thing to be called. So skibidi, toilet, Ohio rizz. Like I just throw these things out. The kids, particularly our youngest, is like,
all right,
cracks up.
I'm going to throw a flag on the field.
You need to be Sigma though. Like you're trying to be Sigma.
What is?
Okay, there was this
maybe I don't understand. All right, Sigma.
There was this whole movement.
We are going to get to construction today at some point, for the record. We are going to get to that. It's just we're trying to figure out our kids actually. Sigma slang. What does that mean?
Okay, Sigma, you want to be an alpha, right?
Okay, so yeah, slang term Sigma has multiple meanings, including the best, dominant leader, lone wolf, cool and popular, and bad. So bad meaning good, though.
I take issue with the dominant leader because this is actually out of the whole, like, if you're an alpha, you're the dominant leader. The Sigma is like the lone wolf that doesn't care about the pack, just lone wolfs it off to themselves. Yeah, so there was a whole thing about being a Sigma male and all this stuff. So like 2 years ago, this came up. But then the term morphed and Gen A got a hold of it. And now they're twisting it into like, cool or something. So and then also turning it into a phrase, what the Sigma, which makes no sense whatsoever, but is said at my house 40 times a day.
What the Sigma?
What the Sigma?
What the Sigma? So
there is your lesson, Tyler. You can relate
just to kind of define this for this is also today.com. So I wonder what today's like target demographic is, like, are they trying to speak to the Gen Xers who are trying to figure out their kids? I think that's it.
Perhaps.
They're trying to lasso that Gen X audience and be with them as they go into their elderly years.
Be relevant.
Yeah.
Except you're not going to be.
So yeah, they say, what is the Sigma? Some know Sigma as the 18th letter of the Greek alphabet, obviously. But it's also teen slang for cool dude. Cool dude. There you go.
What the cool dude?
What the cool dude?
I don't even know.
Why did I just get like Dr. Evil vibes on that? I'm hip. I'm with it.
I'm cool. Also,
Like that's
20-something-year-old movie there.
That's also makes me irrelevant. Anyway,
I make that joke every once in a while. Nobody gets the reference. That's how old the Dr.
yeah,
Evil,
but I get
Austin
it.
Powers
And
reference
like
is.
anytime you make the joke, I'm over in the corner going,
Yeah.
like I'll giggle, but nobody else gets it.
That's apparently an earmark of my generation is like we had like 6 VHS tapes to watch. And so we relate to all of the same things because there was no variety in our lives. Like we all watched the same like sliver of things that came out. So pop culture references, thick amongst the Gen Xers.
Okay, so enough on that.
Sorry.
We're supposed to talk about construction here. I guess this is kind of relevant in a way because we're going to have
coming in. We
do.
got a new generation relating to the world in new ways. There is your transition into something that's relevant to construction, not just relevant to you bringing teenagers.
So if you want to attract more kids to the skilled trades, start calling them Ohio or Sigma or something. I don't know. Maybe not Ohio. That's probably a bad thing.
Construction is so Sigma. We may have the winning title for the episode today. Construction
so Sigma
is so Sigma. What the Sigma?
What the Sigma?
Skibidi toilet, Ohio rizz. We got to move on. If you are a parent, though, you're relating to this because you've been hearing this all summer long. Like these are the words of the summer. It's insane.
The words of the summer.
Yeah. All right. So construction has been transitioning into a more automated and more software-driven thing.
Are you trying to transition this thing right now? Okay. All right.
And
I got
we asked the internets, the LinkedIners, most of which are nowhere near Gen Alpha and probably have no idea what
dude, you just called out our audience. Wow.
I am calling myself out.
Okay. All right.
I'm assuming that they can relate to me. Okay.
Fair
Maybe
enough.
a bad assumption, but we asked for their wisdom.
All right. So here's the question that we posted, and we can get into some of the comments. So what's been lost? What do you feel has been lost in the construction industry's shift towards automation? How has increased automation affected quality, efficiency, and the way you view your work? We want to hear the good, the bad, and the dystopian.
What's been lost? I would say the ability to do things manually by default.
Shocking.
Well, I mean, seriously, like the more you use your calculator, the less you
have to
add manually or multiply it manually.
Yeah.
So the more accustomed you are to the beamline putting the holes in, the less likely you are to be adept at laying out with a soapstone and using a mag drill. Mm-hmm. If you are a welding robot programmer, well, then more time is being spent on telling the welding robot what to do. Less time is being spent with the
hunched over actually
with the welder in your hand.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So manual processes are being lost, like the ability to do the manual processes. I've joked around with Pop about this because Pop talks about, I couldn't do construction these days because of all the computer stuff.
Yeah.
And I always tell him, I said, yeah, but Pop, if the lights ever went out, you'd still be able to do construction and we'd probably be up a big creek.
That's a fact.
So
that's a fact.
The loss of the ability to crunch the numbers, do the processes and take care of that manually, like the old school way. Some of the old school hacks, they're just kind of going away.
Yeah.
They're not there.
That's an interesting thought. Like, if the lights were to shut off, could we still do what we're doing now? Like, I tend to think we'd be up a creek. Like we'd be in a bad way as an industry. Because I think a lot of the people that have come in right now, they're kind of coming in during that transitional period where it's like, we still do have a ton of manual processes and things that we do on paper or whatever, right? And we're all moving over into this digital environment. And I think we're kind of in between. And so we're not really experts in the old way, and we're not even really experts in the new way of doing things too. So we're just kind of like somewhere in that middle ground.
It's like being a teenager.
It is kind of like being a teenager.
We're in an adolescent industry. All right. Well, so
Skibidi.
What do you feel has been lost in the construction industry's shift towards automation? Maybe attentiveness to becoming a craftsman?
Not understanding how the stuff is going to interface with each other. Like you can just click it in instead of having to understand how it fits, how it connects.
There's maybe the thought and the patience required to go from being a novice to being like a journeyman to being a master in a trade.
Yeah.
Understanding it's going to take a while to learn how to be a carpenter
Mm-hmm.
and learn all the hacks,
Yeah.
tips, tricks, things that they know.
Right.
So maybe that's gone by the wayside a bit. How has it increased or affected quality? I tend to think that in some ways quality has gone up as a result of the automations. Anything that you can automate and repeat, I do think you can get more quality out of.
I agree with that.
On the whole.
Yeah.
I think in pockets, there has been a regression in quality.
Yeah. Yeah.
So much in the same way you might look at a custom piece of furniture against an IKEA build.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my thinking there, is like there are realms where spending time, taking time to not automate a thing can render better quality.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
that's a thought there. Efficiency has certainly gone up, the ability to produce things, but some people have argued that it just has
slowed us down in other areas.
Well, it's just allowed us to more efficiently produce crap. That we're actually just pressing crap out the door quicker.
Yeah.
So that's where somebody would say, well, some of that custom and quality has gone to the wayside and the efficiency is just pushing bad product faster.
Yeah.
Or maybe poorly coordinated product faster.
Right, right.
And then how does it change the way you view your work? I do think that the automation of something takes away an element of pride from the thing done.
Yeah.
Again, go back to the furniture. What are you more proud of? Building a piece of furniture with all the joinery and everything that you had to do to just make it a work of art almost?
Yeah.
Or, turning the Allen wrenches and cams to get the IKEA piece of furniture built. I mean, you did something. You put the cabinet together. It took 9.5 hours because it is IKEA and there's 1,000 pieces. But there's not as much pride in that as if you had cut the wood and joined everything and done. I mean, some of the coolest things that I have seen, like shorts and reels and whatever, watching people that really know how to join wood.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing, is like the sense of pride at, the table we're sitting at right now, which is
IKEA.
Totally IKEA.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Hate to burst your bubble here. Versus the one that's in our conference room.
Yes.
That I actually designed and had people help us build and all that stuff, right?
We even know where the wood came from.
Like we know where the wood came from. It came from Dad's farm.
Yeah.
Which, and then Barrick took it and he, put it together in a tabletop that is beautiful. And then I had a guy that was local, who just has a shop out in his backyard, weld together the legs and everything. And I look at it, I'm like, yeah, it's pretty sick. Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool. And I mean, there's a sense of pride about it for sure. Automation makes you become less connected to the product or to what is happening across the board. So I've been kind of digging into like business side of things. There was a guy that I followed, Ryan Dice. Really interesting thoughts on a lot of different perspectives with just entrepreneurship. But he talks about like building out basically a scorecard for your business, and I won't get into all that. But he talked through and he was like, listen, I know a lot of people are saying that this could be automated. And he kind of said, I urge you not to automate it. And his argument was that if you automate it, then people turn off their brains. They just see the number and they don't really register it. Whereas if they manually have to go in and put their number in for the week that says, I did this many, proposals or this, that, and the other, however you're measuring yourself. If I go in and I do that, I have to look at it and I have to say, why did I win? Why did I lose? And there's a connectedness to the process. And so that I feel like plagues the entire industry right now because we're in that kind of weird zone where some of it's automated, some of it's still not. And I feel like some people are relying so much on the automation to take care of everything that they shut off their brains. They say, I put in the stair in a model. I went click, click, here's a stair. And it goes from floor to floor and it looks right, but they don't necessarily know how to go deeper, right? Whereas if it was a manual process where you had to model the channel and then you had to model the bent plate and you had to go in and model the angles that support the bent plate underneath and like all of that stuff, think about how connected you are to that piece versus just going click, click and it coming in. So like there's an element of it that I totally understand from the speed side of things. I think there's an issue there though, because we're not as connected to the stuff that's automated. So it's kind of a both and sort of situation. So okay. I'm not like, I love automation as much as the next human being. Like I love it. But at the same time, we have to understand there's some sacrifices that we're making as far as how connected we are to the work we're doing as a result of it being automated.
Okay, response to that, as you're talking, first thing, I was thinking about how sometimes I break down and like if I'm going to make a list, I make the list on a piece of paper with a pen.
Because you retain it better.
Because I retain it better. We've talked about this with audiobooks. I mean, an audiobook is more or less the automation of reading.
It is, yeah.
But it doesn't stick quite as well as actually reading the book. All right, so the different processes. Next thing, automation's always been around, right? Yeah. So like a canned detail that, like a standard detail, we always call them canned details, which has a negative context, but standard details have been a part of what we do for a long time. So you have a standard way of putting together, kind of a kit of parts to make whatever. Yeah. And it's your header detail or it's a beam connection detail or whatever. You have a standard detail for that. There's always been a level of automation. And in some ways, modeling has pulled us back from the canned details and has made us look at things on a more individual basis. The trick is having enough automated, but not too much so you disengage. Because I can take a stair component in Tekla, click it in, and all of the Z-pans come in automatically. Am I really out anything for not having to had every Z-pan click, 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 click? No, I'm not. No. But would I be out something if the thing just, was already drawn up and looked as though it would fit? And I'm like, oh, I'm going to plug standard detail, 101 in there. Bop. Okay, there's my stair. It might miss context. It might miss some of the surroundings. It's going to lose something. So you want to automate the things that are easily repeatable and mindless.
Aware automation, right? Like automation that's aware of the context surrounding it. Sure. Instead of it just being automation for automation's sake. And I think that's what we fall into a lot is automation for automation's sake. Because what's a calculator? A calculator is a freaking automation, right? I can go bup, 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 get the answer, and I'm down the road. Yeah. That's a great use of automation.
Been around a long time. Yeah.
And it's a great use of automation.
Was the slide rule an automation?
I guess in a way. Yeah.
You've got predefined values that are already calculated for you. Now, it wasn't electronic automation, but it was an automation of a process so that I don't have to go back and do the mathematical calculation.
A template for that matter. If we're talking like woodworking or anything, cut out a template. A jig. Yeah. That's an automation. So, I think in some cases, automation doesn't cause you to unplug your brain, but we're also seeing a lot of cases where it is causing you to unplug your brain from the process too. So it's a hard thing to answer. It's a hard problem to kind of wrap your head around because there's so many different variables and it's such a gradient. But it's a fun thing to think about. It's like what deserves to be automated, what deserves not to be automated.
Yeah, that's the thing that makes this kind of a cool question to grapple with, is thinking through your processes and thinking through the things that you're going to automate and deciding, where do I still want to have a touch point? Like you're saying, in business, like where do I actually want to have to report that thing? Because it's going to plug me into it.
Okay.
All right. That's our part. Let's see.
Let's see what the people had to say.
See what the people said. All right. I want to read. Can I read Todd's?
Yeah, read Todd's.
All right. Productivity was historically measured against actual production, achieved with labor and equipment providing that production. Looking ahead, as great as automation, a construction process can be, I think a lot of knowledge and experience gets lost in the process. We have many historical examples to look at where someone or somebody, some body of people in history figured out a way to do something that nobody now can figure out. That to me is kind of what is happening now. I think automation is a way of achieving a production goal, but how do you measure that? What happens if the automation process forces everyone to only think about just that process? I've witnessed this in my working life. Sure, automation and efficiency, what's not to like? But witnessing what jobs and knowledge that are lost to it makes me think that we are losing far more than we are gaining with it. In fact, I think we're in a period of rapid technological advances. Take AI, for instance. People are saying it won't take your job, only enhance it. But if that is truly the case, why is it viewed as a threat to humanity? And sure, it all sounds good, even great, but what will be the true cost? And how, by what standard, will we measure productivity in the future? Thank you, Todd. And kudos to your punctuation. Because they help me inflect on the right syllables.
You know what I'm curious about?
What?
Wonder if he used AI to enhance that and make sure.
Was it an AI? I doubt it. It felt very personal.
I don't think so. It felt personal.
No, genuinely. I mean, it was very good thoughts.
Yeah.
So striking at the heart of that, people unplug from a process as the thing gets automated. So it becomes less personal and it becomes something that I know less about. And I'm less likely to be able to repeat that skill myself.
Do you need to know the skill? You know, if I'm kind of like taking the side of like automation and like we have to automate, do you need to know that skill?
Okay, I'm going to fast forward a little bit, but Josh brought up in another post, we're losing basic things, like how to read a tape measure. Okay, so let's take Josh's example here of the tape measure. If I've got a laser tape, and I can go out and just go point to point.
Yep.
Push a button and it tells me what the dimension is. And I can use that for the process I'm engaged in.
Yeah.
Does that mean that I can now just throw the ability to read a tape to the side and say, well, it does it? Or does the ability to read a tape still have value?
I think it does in the current environment, but you're seeing even advancements in like tape measures, dude. Like, I mean, some of them, like they've got a digital display on them now. Like you've seen those, right?
Yep.
So like, okay, in the case where you can't use a laser to figure out the distance, where it's like, okay, I got to hook on that corner of the table and then like pull a line from here to there. Like we've got some advancements that are happening in tape technology. Who's to say that's a bad thing? You know, I kind of come back to this point of like,
do we still need to know the old way though?
I wonder, yeah. Okay, so at one point in humanity, we used cubits.
Yeah.
You know, so we've got from our elbow to the tip of our finger, that's a cubit, right? I almost wonder if the innovation of a tape measure cause people to go, well, people won't even know how to use cubits anymore. I mean, really. So there's a part of it that I'm wondering, this might just happen with innovation. I think it does happen with innovation, where people do hold on to the past in a way.
Let me reframe. Let me reframe.
I don't know.
Come at you a little different from an education standpoint.
How dare you come at me from an educated point of view?
I didn't say from an educated point of view. Clarify. I did not say that. That was not the thing that came out of my mouth. The thing that came out of my mouth was from an educational. I'm looking at people that are educated that do that thing. Yeah. I am not one of them. I'm not claiming to be. Thinking through the advent of ChatGPT.
Yep.
And everything that teachers now have to do to keep their students from cheating. Here's the thing. Great. They got a degree. And I'll go back to that saying that I've said again and again, and it's a fun one. But an education is the only thing that you'll pay for, but you don't really want. You pay all that money for a master's degree to get an education.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And you do everything in your power to get out of the process of being educated by the people that are trying to educate you.
Yeah.
So that you can get grades.
Yep.
So that you can get a degree.
Yep.
Because what are you actually paying for? The credential. What would you be better to pay for? The education. Now,
that's the thing you are.
Is it still useful to be able to write?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is it still useful to be creative? Like, we have talked about how AI can be creative. That's what it does. It creates.
Yeah.
But is it useful for the human brain to make a story, to write a story, to actually like paint a piece of art or draw and tactily make a drawing?
Yeah.
These things are still useful even if there are automations for that because, it lights the brain up.
Right.
Educationally, math. I mean, there are apps now that you can literally take a picture.
And it'll solve the math problem.
And it will solve the equation.
Yeah.
Now, to what point does that go? I'd make a case that most of construction, I'm no math whiz, but I am in a more analytical side of construction, or seemingly analytical, seemingly math-driven.
Yep.
Steel detailing, right? I mean, you at least need to know like some trig basics and different things, but the softwares are doing a lot of that now.
They are.
What do we do for most of the day? We manipulate fractions. We add, we subtract, we work with money, we multiply, we divide. They're basics.
Yeah.
So what about all the calculus that maybe you had to learn in high school? Did you need it? Are you using it? Is it useful to be able to take picture math and just take a picture of the equation and have it solved?
Yeah.
Or is the heart of it understanding the process so that we know how it works?
That's fair.
So just because you've got the slide rule doesn't mean that you don't need to know how the numbers appeared on the slide rule.
Mm-hmm.
You know the logic that grounds that.
Yeah.
And that is a whole thing that we need to think through, is how much of the logic that grounds our automation do we still need to retain?
That's fair. That's fair.
That we don't need to lose to time.
I mean, have we talked about Poppy, our grandfather's homework that he did for his degree?
Which?
Like, we've got that big folder of some of the math that he had to do when he was coming through college back in the 50s. And you look at it and you're like, holy crap, I'm dumb. Like, legit. I look at him like, I'm stupid. I understand nothing. I don't understand any of this. And we've come out of that age where it's like, he had to go through, he didn't have ChatGPT. He had to learn it. In order to pass, he had to freaking learn how to do the thing. And there was a lot of beating his head against the wall, like trying and failing, and that comes with learning. And we just, a lot of times, especially more recently, we don't have the desire to learn some of these old processes so that we can fully understand what's going into this. I think it's good to have a baseline understanding of what fully goes into something. And then if we automate it, fine, but at least we understand it, right? I don't know though, but at the same time, I can look at it and go, okay, wow, that's incredible that he can do all of that stuff and he has that understanding. But I could solve that stuff in a fraction of the time that it took him to do all of that handwriting and all of the extrapolation that comes with solving those problems. Which is pretty crazy to think. Like, we can do that rapidly. We can get to the answer that we need and move down the road. So it's, golly, man, it's a hard thing to wrap your head around because, like, again, like I love automation. I love it. It's great. But like, I also like the process of learning. It's complex.
It's very
complex, man. There's not a right answer for any of this, I think.
Something I've been finding as I go to some of the data center sites. So I'll go to a data center site and I'll go do some scanning.
Yep.
And it's very interesting when that site is remote.
Mm-hmm.
And cell coverage is not good.
Yeah.
So I'm all of a sudden without cell service or Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm.
If I've got to walk out on site, I'm away from, maybe my power sources. It could be 100 and some degrees out on the site, and my devices start to get hot.
Overheating.
Mm-hmm. Things start to break.
Yeah.
Tablet doesn't want to work. So the paperless, way I like to work when I'm in the controlled environment office gets challenged mightily by the field.
Yep.
And there are times where I'm like, I just need a dang piece of paper and a pen.
Yeah.
I do. And I think that when we find ourselves all of a sudden without, our inability to work around the automations and do things in spite of the fact that we don't have that automation really gets challenged quickly. Take, for instance, these large pieces of equipment. Hey, kids, if you want a job opportunity right now, learn how to work on fixing robotics.
Mm-hmm.
Learn how to work on fixing the tools that are now being created.
Yeah.
Learn how to fix a beam line. Because when the fab shop goes down and the beam line ain't working anymore, it's chaos, man. That wreaks havoc on the system. When the plasma line ain't doing its thing, no more cuts, it's out of calibration, which happens. Who's going to get it back and calibrate it? Who's going to work on the actual tool? When that happens, it wreaks havoc in these shops. We've noticed that with NC files. We're sending out these NC files that actually drive these robots. Well, if the NC files aren't right, many times the shops kind of like clam up and shut down. They don't know what to do anymore. They don't know how to manually enter it. It's just supposed to come in. And I get holding people accountable and making sure information is good, and you're getting that as a part of what you're paying for. At the same time, if you can't manually do it, man, you're hamstrung. So when you sell out to automation in a way that keeps you from doing anything manually, then you've actually increased risk of not being able to accomplish something if you go down. If your automation takes a hit because of something.
Can I give an example of good? Our podcast, the cuts that you're seeing if you're watching on YouTube for the video, a way that we actually get that done quicker is we use AI. We have this tool that plugs in and it will chop and switch cameras depending on who's talking. And our editor doesn't have to sit there and find the break points. Cook doesn't have to sit there and find the breaking points and pull everything together like he used to. Saves him an hour and a half a week just in that one little automation. Now, here's the thing though. If that automation goes down, breaks, doesn't start, like stops working completely, cook's still in business. He can still make it happen.
Yep.
Because he has that basic understanding of how to edit. Now, if he didn't have that basic understanding of how to edit, we would be screwed if that automation went down. Which is, I think, what you're referring to in a lot of these fabrication shops is that everybody is so used to coming in with the automation that when it goes away, then they're completely lost and your shop is completely screwed. If we're using the fab shop as an example.
Yeah, you've sold out to it in a way that keeps you from working any other way.
Right. So like you're so used to this other stuff. Now okay, let's say the beam line goes down or whatever, automation goes down. And it's going to take them a week and a half to send somebody out to fix it. Because let's be fair, there are not a lot of people out there that know how to fix a beam line that was made in Switzerland and shipped overseas. Like it's going to take some time to get the person here to service it and fix the problem. Like having people that know how to pick up a mag drill and just keep going and like, okay, well, if this isn't working, we're going back to the old way because we got to keep it moving. That's pretty stinking valuable. Yep. Because it keeps the schedules moving, right? I mean, yeah, you may not be as quick. It may not be as pretty, but you're at least keeping your shop moving. So having a basic understanding of how things work can help you when you go to automate.
So point taken and beaten to death there. So how about Tim Bates' comments on our collaboration between trades actually getting worse? What thinking do you have on that? Agree or disagree?
True collaboration between trades. Everyone is just pushing as fast as they can to get their work in and make a milestone. True collaboration between trades. I mean, if we're all modeling our stuff and we're pushing it into a model that just uses automation to push it all together and clash detect and do all that stuff, all right, that's all fine and dandy and stuff, but also understanding the ins and outs of how this whole system's supposed to work together might be a pretty valuable thing. And also, if you're pushing a model in, you're not taking into account the other stuff around it, right? So you as a steel person, you're not really as concerned about what the mechanical person is doing or the electrical person is doing or the plumbing person, so on and so forth. And so these automations almost cause like a little bit of a gray area whenever you push everything together. Yeah, I mean, automation can find it and do clash detection, all that. But having an eye that you can still go in and look and the process, how it all should come together, how it should look, and you can ask educated questions, that's really what makes like BIM, I'll say, as an automation sing. Is if you have the understanding of the systems and how they should work harmoniously together. Now that's a rarity. Yeah. Not everybody knows that stuff. So
communication is kind of like the foundation of all of that.
Right.
So communication is the foundation of good collaboration. Oof. And let's take our BIM guy hat off.
Automate communication.
Well, let's take our BIM guy hat off. We try. We try to automate communication a lot. A lot of times it makes it bleed into the woodwork. And those auto emails, we're just like, I ain't checking that anymore. I don't know how many like meeting rundowns I get a week where I'm like, I'm not reading that.
Archive.
Yeah, I'm not reading that. Communication between trades on site. Mm-hmm. So there's a reference here to kind of the overhead game where first one wins. You get in there, you place your work, and then, if somebody's got a problem with it, well, pay me to come back and fix it.
Yeah.
Here's my CO.
Yeah.
Pay me to come back.
Yeah.
I'll fix it for you. If not, you're going to have to work around it, figure it out, because I've installed my work. And that requires a level of communication. You could have a clash check BIM model, and I mean, you still have to get that communicated to the field. Mm-hmm. You still have to get that from this coordinated BIM model into production, into the field, and installed properly. And that also includes like working out the gray areas of that. I mean, like, does that process, work out absolutely 100% of the field issue that you may have.
Are we consulting our field crews?
Getting the
At
field
the end
crews,
of the day, like, are we bringing them back to do a post-mortem and be like, what worked, what didn't, and learning?
Communicating and learning. In some ways, collaboration has gone up through the BIM meetings and the clash detection and trying to get everybody in one room to talk through, like, where's the sprinkler going to go? Where's the duct going to go?
Are we collaborating with the right people, though?
I think GCs are becoming more sophisticated when it comes to, like, figuring out who to get in a room.
Yeah.
They are. I mean, in pockets, at least you would have to admit. At least
in pockets, yeah.
That the sophistication of the whole virtual design and construction process has gone up.
Yeah.
But that still requires communication as we're pushing to the field. It still requires communication from like the design, the detailing end into the field where the installed work is informed by it, where the production is informed by it. And so we can still use that same old process of, well, if I get there first, I win. Mm-hmm. I'm just gonna, I don't care I don't care who I hose by getting here. I'm just gonna, I just got to be here.
Yeah.
And knowing the realities of construction. I mean, being real.
Yeah.
When other people don't show up on time, when you're like waiting around and like they have to place a thing before you place a thing. And you're like, all right, but my crews have been on standby for weeks. Mm-hmm. We're putting it in. Y'all can figure it out because I got to put it in. I got to bill it because I got a cash flow problem because I got to make sure that I get paid.
Yeah,
and you're not going to pay me until I get this done.
Yeah.
There are all these little places where we kind of fumble and trip over
I got to
each
get
other.
my invoice in to start aging now because I know you're going to be a net 120.
Yeah. There are so many little things that come up in the reality of working as a subcontractor and trying to work through the risk of being a subcontractor. One supplier shows up a little bit late and you had this thing slotted for Q3 and that slid into Q4. And Q4 was already just chock full.
Yeah.
And I've only got so many crews to do the install.
Yep.
Or I've only got so many crews to do the production processes. Issues.
Yep.
And sometimes that's not created by you. Mm-hmm. We have seen this firsthand on a very large job in the recent past, where the whole thing just backed up basically at the hands of shop drawings and RFI. Mm-hmm. And this is not one I detailed. I'm not talking about one I detailed. This is one that I've been completely on the side of, and I've just gotten to watch another crew go through this. And I'm like, yep, familiar with that process. Mm-hmm. Had a bunch of questions. And it held the project hostage and nobody was answering. And then all of a sudden, wait. Okay, go and accelerate. We got to have it. Then there's no resource. All of the planned resource is not there. You got a problem. That's the realities of the field.
Yeah.
Collaborating requires communication through that and telling people, I'm going to be here then and doing it.
It's kind of a volume issue, don't you think?
How so?
There's so many projects that people are having to juggle now. If I come back and I look at POP as an example, as we often do, how many projects did POP have going at any one time?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
I'd be curious to know, and how that is different today versus back then, because I tend to think the load that people carry, let's just take an engineer, for example, right? So if the RFI is getting bogged down as a result of the engineer not answering questions or even the architect answering questions, what's their workload like? Are they overloaded to a point that they just can't get to it, man? It's not that they're being evil and, trying to pull one over on somebody or screw somebody. It's literally they don't have the bandwidth for it.
Yeah.
And so they reach to automation to make up the gap because they're like, I have to automate some of these things because there's so much work. That's the only shot I have of actually getting it done because I'm too overloaded. And I feel like that's the case for a lot of people. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to come back to that, but I'm going to give Riley a little shout out here because he was talking about how schedules can't shrink anymore.
Yeah.
Like schedules can't shrink infinitely. And point taken, Riley, I think is a good point to make. Now, one thing is a conversation, I don't know that you've heard this talked about, but Pop talking to Steve, who worked for Messer and like we're talking about large projects they're on.
Yeah.
What Pop was amazed by was the size of the team that was dedicated to a single project. Pop would look at a project and be like, it was me, my super, and a timekeeper.
And that's it.
And that was the crew.
Yeah. And
that would be like a 30-person management crew now.
Yeah.
Literally. And that's what's kind of boggled his mind is how many more people we dogpile into a single process.
Was that Millette Hall that he was probably speaking about?
Yeah, something like Millette. I mean, there were
Miami University. You guys can even look it up, Millette Hall. It was that, which is not small, not a small structure by any stretch. And having 3 people that were point on that versus today, there's so many layers to what we do today.
We do dogpile a lot more people in.
We do.
Which makes the communication complexity grow. But that's a byproduct of like the pace at which the project went.
Every new person you add to your project is another set of emotions, another set of email strings, another set of X, Y, Z. Like you're compounding your problem the more people you have. Some of the simple things, like they kind of figured things out on site. Pop talks about like calling the architect and just working it out with him. Figuring it out.
And then they just did it. So you weren't worried about documenting 9 ways to Sunday because here come the lawyers.
Right. It is a different world we live in.
He was just kind of like, we just got on and worked it out. And you listen to Pop, and he's like, and that architect, he was a fine man. It wasn't his comment on everybody he ever worked with. But I mean, just immense respect there. It was a different day and time when they were working on that. It was less automated.
Yeah.
They were bringing a lot more to the site in sticks and piles.
Yeah.
And making something out of the sticks and piles.
It'd be really interesting to compare like number of crew on that job, size of job, and then the time frame.
And then the duration. Yeah.
I wonder if we could get that out of Pop.
In comparison to what something might
I wonder if Pop has that info. It wouldn't be surprising if he did.
We had the Southern job that we just did.
Yeah.
And I'd be curious to see like how that would pace because they're similar-ish structures. So,
that would be telling. That'd be telling. Like, because if he had like an extra 100 people laboring on the job versus now we have, whatever, then it starts to make it up. Then you start to go, okay, well, he had more resources, so he could get it done. But if he had fewer resources and fewer resources and less automation, it was all paper, that'd be really interesting to look at. Well, I'd just be curious, just morbidly curious to see what the differences would be.
There's the Empire State effect too.
Right, yeah, safety factors.
The safety with which we work now
for sure
slows things down, but people don't die as much.
Which is good. We like that.
Which is why we do that thing.
Yes.
So you can't go cowboy or force somebody else to go cowboy like you could then.
Yeah.
Not saying that happened on Millette or anything, but
but
there were different rules. I mean, that was pre-OSHA.
Very, very different rules.
Dad's Mr. OSHA. Mr. OSHA wasn't even on site yet.
Yeah, right, right.
OSHA had not happened.
Yeah.
So it was a different time to build it.
Yeah, let's see if we pull that together because that'd be a fun little episode to do, is if we could dig into some of that detail. Like here's the comparisons between one job back in the 50s versus today.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
That'd be really interesting. I'm going to ask Dad about that one.
Well,
anyway.
not down on automation. Automation is going to be a part of what we do. I think the call here or maybe some of the picking at this is that we need to automate responsibly. We need to automate in a way that retains and holds on to enough of the foundational knowledge that drives the automation to still be proficient, to still have basic understanding and proficiency in those foundational things. They are still important.
If we want to get better as an industry, educational automation is huge. Like, we have to educate people on the process, and we have to automate as a result. Like, if we want our automation to get better, we got to continue to invest in training our people. And that's a thing that I feel like I'm seeing a lot of, is people are just thrown to the wolves, not trained, and given a bunch of automation, and we're getting a bunch of crap out on the other end.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we've got to focus back in on our training efforts. We can't just throw people into it and expect automation to handle all of our freaking problems. And I feel like that ends up being an accidental thing that we do. Like, we chuck them in there and we just assume, oh, this app is going to solve the problem for us, and then it screws us on the back end, right?
So taking the curmudgeon hat off, I do believe that automation is going to make things cheaper.
Agreed.
Safer.
Agreed.
I think it can make quality go up. Yeah. I believe that it can streamline collaboration and communication. Automation will aid and abet how we work.
Yes.
And we will have benefit from it.
Yeah.
It is a good thing, and you do need to embrace it. So sitting off the side and being like, this isn't, unhelpful. Unhelpful.
We're there. We got to start solving the problem today.
You better go ahead and lock in with this.
Yeah.
Learn it, use it, know it, and do so well. I mean, it is going to be something that's going to set you apart in the industry, being able to automate.
Yeah.
Shops are going that way.
Yeah.
Suppliers are going that way. Subcontractors are going that way. This is happening.
Yeah.
So automation is a good thing.
Yeah. Well, shoot, Dave, we started with a bunch of kid terms and
kid garble
and stuff that we learned this summer. And I think we actually had a pretty interesting conversation here. I was actually pretty shocked. Did we solve anything though? I don't know if we solved anything, but I definitely think it's good. It's good food for thought, right?
It's good food for thought.
Good food for thought.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, there you have it. I'm out of coffee. So that means the show's over. Go build something awesome.